Okay, so here we are, January 15th, 2022. We are fully, deeply into the Venus retrograde.
And Mercury just went retrograde.
And Mercury just went retrograde. So this is what we were speaking of in the interview at the last one. We were like, okay, everyone get ready. Hold on to your seats. We don't
Hold
know
on
what
to
it's
your
gonna
hats.
be.
That's right.
Hold on to your hats.
Right. I mean, it seems like it's the chaos of everything, right? Everything is, there's like critical mass in so many directions. And people keep saying, well, pandemics end, it's going to, and it's like, oh my God, it just seems like nobody's in charge and everything's a mess. And I think, you know, in the life of an individual, I would say Mercury is retrograde, square Uranus. It's going to be chaotic. It's going to be chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
And each person's chaos is a little bit different, right? Where each one of us has a unique kind of personal, like if you have something connected to those degrees in your chart, you might have more personal chaos. Something might fall off the shelf at you, but for the planet in general, I think we have to be careful not to be completely panicked by what seems chaotic. And I think we have to also not deny the fact that we're all feeling it.
Right. Yes. I would say that's accurate from all the people I've talked to, as well as myself. Like, yeah, there does seem to be an increased amount of chaos and just like confusion, I guess is the word. Yeah. So you did tell us very clearly. I texted quite a few people on the day of Mercury retrograde and or Venus retrograde. I reminded them,
Nice.
do not despair. We are meant to be in the underworld. It's fine. We'll get to the other side.
Yeah, we made it through the conjunction of Venus to the sun. So now Venus is ready to start rolling up her sleeves and saying, okay, if we can't put the genie back in the bottle, how am I going to live this?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, and that's what you said. There's going to be feelings of despair. There's going to be feelings of grief. There's going to be feelings of loss, and the awareness that what has died is gone and is not coming back. And so, how do I grieve that and move on? And so, which part would you say that we're at now? Is she off the meat hook yet? Are we off the meat hook?
She's off the meat hook.
Okay.
Somewhere in the world, she's probably visible just
over the horizon.
After sunset in the west, in the east after sunrise. Sorry, that was me talking about the other Venus. So the morning star, only if you get up early will you see Venus as the morning star, because she rises before the sun. Early, yeah, pretty early, when it has to still be dark out.
Right.
But if you but I wouldn't, here in Toronto, I wouldn't bother looking for her yet.
But symbolically, are we off the meat hook?
Just.
Okay, so now we're just getting our bearings to start to rise up.
Right, so we're just getting our bearings, but now Mercury went retrograde squaring Uranus, and so it's like, what bearings? Like, how can I get bearings? Because I can't know anything. Mercury is in Aquarius, which is knowledge. Aquarius likes to know where it's going. Aquarius is a sign of blueprints and plans and ideals. So Mercury in Aquarius square Uranus and Taurus, which has one more trick up its sleeve, don't kid yourself. So Mercury went stationary retrograde, and Uranus in the next couple of days is going to go stationary direct. So they're wild ships passing in the night, colliding and then moving on. Okay. But Uranus and Taurus is like the outrageous cold that we're having, and the fact that it's then going to get warmer, and it's the atmospheric river coming back to BC. I think Uranus and Taurus is bringing a lot of earth changes as it travels. And so square, I think of Uranus and Taurus is more about climate change than, and I think Venus in Capricorn retrograde, et cetera, was about systemic failure and therefore COVID and the management and mismanagement. You know, the way that politics is part of the management is driving everybody bonkers.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
So,
you said that from the beginning, like when you told me about it in 2000, the summer of 2019, you said to me, "Oh, I don't like what's coming." You said you said it looks like a pandemic, and it looks like the problem is the mismanagement.
that's
And
been the problem. The problem has been mismanagement, not COVID.
yeah, and that's what it's looking to be that.
Right.
So, I mean, congratulations on your prophecy, but yeah, I'm sorry, it was
You know,
true.
it's weird. It's a weird feeling. I wish I could explain it, to have been right.
Yeah.
Right. I was teaching 2020 and 2018.
Yeah.
And you know, the subtitle of the workshop was Getting to and Through 2020.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I remember
And
you. Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm glad to be right, you know, like on an ego level, like, aren't I
Sure.
cool? But I'm horrified.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah.
That's what I was kind of like, congratulations, but yeah. Yeah. I mean, you offered a lot of navigation through it though, because it's never just one thing. And so here we are, and we are off the meat hook, and we're just about to get our bearings, and then Mercury and Uranus come along with
And
the
Uranus
storm,
says to Mercury, you don't know what the hell you're doing
and Mercury's like,
until you deal with the Earth, Taurus, Uranus and Taurus, you're an idiot.
yeah. I did read that there's supposed to be a tsunami in BC coming
Right.
this
Yeah.
weekend.
There's things going to happen in the
Yeah.
near future. And, you know, I think what's making everyone so miserable is the fact that I don't know what to do about it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like I should, you know, buy an energy efficient furnace, but not until mine breaks. And then anyone's going to tell me not to because my house is too small or it's too old or something, you know. So it's very hard to know if there's anything you can do as an individual,
Mm-hmm.
you know, unless you're somebody who actually has some kind of clout in the, you know, where the natural world is concerned.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so we've got those players. We've got Venus emerging. She's ready to fight or move forward. You said, at least as the
He's
morning
ready to
star.
fight.
She's right. She's got her priorities intact. She, like,
He
after
does.
being down there and grieving and feeling and doing all of the wailing and gnashing of teeth and all of that. She's clear on her priorities and her values, at least. So
That's
we
right. That's
all
a great way to see it. Yeah.
we all might be a little clearer about what we value. We all might be a little clearer about what we prioritize now. The challenge is now, okay, how now do I do and put how do I take action around it when the knowledge and the ideas are not quite there, like there's a storm of confusion around them.
And, you know, the worst thing is, I know for me is, you know, what does it matter? Who cares? Right? About my individual contribution or lack of contribution. You know, it's such a drop in the bucket. And the big thing, I guess, that has to change in our psyche as a species is this outrageous devotion we have to individuality. And yet that doesn't mean we should all succumb to Amazon and Facebook and Google. You know, we shouldn't all, you know, bow to the algorithm. So
Mm-hmm.
how do we do that?
Yeah. Um, yeah, that's a good question. And I'm just gonna, I might be throwing something at you
Go
from
right
a
ahead.
Uranus perspective, but I couldn't help but notice that Pluto is gonna, after it's done kind of uprooting all of the system, it's gonna then go into Aquarius.
Next year,
In
23. Yeah.
oh no,
Yeah.
oh, that's soon.
That's very soon. It's much sooner than I wish. But
Yeah,
Pluto goes into Aquarius in
yeah,
23, and then it goes back into Capricorn. Uranus and Neptune are going to go change signs also in 24 and 25. Neptune's going to go into Aries and Uranus is going to go into Gemini. And that's going to be a lot more action, I think, in terms of human beings on the planet, being able to, I think Neptune in Pisces, for all that it's, you know, cosmic and mystical and stuff like that, is very difficult in terms of taking action, because it's easy. We're gaslighted every time, every turn. At every turn, we're gaslighted.
Yeah.
And Neptune in Neptune in Pisces is gaslighty.
Yeah. And so I was wondering if maybe is Pluto going to go through um
Let me say something
Uranus?
about Pluto.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Venus went retrograde conjunct Pluto, and Mercury goes direct conjunct Pluto. So Venus went retrograde on December 19th conjunct Pluto, saying, oh, not only am I taking this trip to the underworld, but I'm doing it with the planet, the principle of death and rebirth. But, you know, like, I'm going down to Pluto's realm and Pluto's holding my hand kind of thing, like, oh, wow, okay. And
You know what Adrian said, it's like having a birthday party with Voldemort invited.
exactly, very good. And Mercury goes direct conjunct Pluto, saying, lest we forget, these, it's inevitable that if you don't deal with climate change, the seas will rise, you know, all these things are going to happen. It's just what's going to happen. It's not, there's no magical thinking here. Pluto isn't a mean guy. Pluto is simply these, you know, this is what happens.
It's like the shadow underneath, or the underbelly. It's not bad. It's just the part that's not being able to be seen.
Right. And we are incredibly adept at denial.
Yeah. Not so much anymore, hopefully.
Not so much anymore, but still, I mean, there's so many distractions and so many ways to think you're doing something and not. I mean, honestly, I think right now we just have to hang in, and after February 3rd, when Mercury goes direct conjunct Pluto, it'll take a few days after that, but then we sort of begin the year. And I don't, you know, like, the thing about this kind of interview is there's astrology and then there's my interpretation of it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And your interpretation of it and our spin of it. And anybody who's listening to this should know that my personal view is this is about humans getting born into the age of Aquarius, and birth is always a wild ride. So we were born to these times because it's a wild ride for us. It's a big one. It's a big wild ride.
Yeah. And really, why should we expect anything different given our history on the planet? Like,
right.
why would we expect it wouldn't be? But I agree with you, and that's why I'm interviewing you, is because I like your perspective of things. So
well, good. Okay, I'm glad. I like to share.
I want to share it. I don't want to keep it all to myself.
It's not like I don't have things to say.
Well, they've been helpful for me, and that's kind of, it's going to be helpful, I think, just to realize, because I was just feeling like I was getting my bearings, and then you mentioned the Mercury retrograde. So it's good to sort of also just have that in my mind's holding that, okay, yeah, there is going to be a confusion of, like, Uranus and Mercury, very airy, very ideas, very thinking minded. So maybe just keep grounding, myself in, as like you said, as much as possible. I'm not gonna maybe know what the direction is. I'm not maybe gonna be able to come to a solid uh formal thesis. It's a matter of, like, giving it the space to have the process that it needs to have until it's ready, till there's clarity.
So I always think that Aquarius is at its best when it cultivates beginner's mind, right? If I don't know everything, then I can learn a lot.
Oh, that's Aquarius at its best.
It is. And so Mercury retrograde is asking us not to have answers, but to, to just observe and see what is knowledge and what is, claptrap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, to try to just breathe and wait, not wait, but ground or be still.
Well, there's a lot that you could do. I mean,
Yeah.
you could organize stuff, you could do rituals, you could say prayers, you could listen, you could meditate. The actual middle day of Mercury, when Venus goes retrograde and conjuncts the sun, that conjunction is when Venus goes from being the evening star to the morning star. And it's true for Mercury as well. When Mercury conjuncts the sun, which will be on January 23rd at 3 degrees of Aquarius, that's when Mercury begins to change from the evening star to the morning star. So these dates when a planet conjuncts the sun are mystical moments. There's not so much events related to them, but there are times when, if you're given to sort of listening to the universe, they're good days to listen to the universe.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so the idea is on January 23rd, you might want to see if the messenger has a message for you.
Yes, and we did that for, you told me about January 8th being the conjunction
Yeah, that
of
was
the sun.
Venus. Yeah.
Yeah. And because I had it marked in my calendar on that day to just sort of be aware, I did have some very profound realizations. And so I would encourage everybody to write some of those dates in your book and just notice. And you don't get it by being like, what is it? Of course, it's a matter of just like allowing the day to be, and then they just kind of arise.
Take notes. I always say take notes.
Take notes. Okay, so that's January, you said January 23rd. That's when Mercury and the Sun are conjunct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you might get nothing,
Sure.
but you might, Mercury is the trickster and the fleet-footed messenger. And I find when I turn towards it, it turns towards me.
Nice.
Mhm.
Okay. One thing we haven't talked about yet, I want to talk about the full moon that's coming, I think, in 2 days. And I also want to talk about Jupiter. Maybe let's talk about Jupiter first, and then we'll go to the full moon. How's that
No,
sound?
I'd like to talk about the full moon first.
Okay. All right. Let's go.
There's not that much to say about the full moon, except that it will be opposite Pluto. Right? So the full moon will
everywhere.
The full moon will be at 27 degrees of Cancer, and that will be opposite Pluto. And I have to say that this full moon makes me nervous, because when it was at 27 degrees of Taurus was when BC had all that problems 2 months ago.
Okay.
And so that's my fear. But my hope is that we have learned something and that we will be ready. I mean, the moon will be in Cancer. Cancer is about security. Cancer is about, bottom line security. Just use that word. Like it's what makes us feel safe at home, right? Safe as houses. And, Pluto says, well, here's the consequences to whatever. Right. So I think that possibly we have learned something from what happened 2 full moons ago, and we will not be caught so unawares. Right. So I'm not, I could make a movie out of it, and I'm nervous that there's another atmospheric river, etc. But so's everybody else, right? So I don't want to just jump on the bandwagon. But that's what's going on. Like we're all being asked to look at what allows us to feel secure and how that's transforming right before our eyes, or, in the moment.
Yeah. That's sort of just taking that in terms of what
That's
makes
immediate. That's immediate, right? And then the full moon happens on the 17th, it looks like, at 6:48 p.m. in Eastern time. And then, so 3 days before, and the day before, the day of, and the day after are really very powerful around the full moon. But the new moon plants the seed, the full moon shows the culmination, and then you have 2 more weeks till the next new moon.
Right. Yeah, and you had mentioned in your moons workshop, which I think is still available for people to buy if they want as well.
Yeah.
If they want to go to your website, they can
It's a
purchase that.
downloadable. It's downloadable, yeah.
Yeah, really good information. You mentioned that, because the nodes of the moon are moving into Taurus and
Oh, right.
Scorpio.
Yes, of course.
Um, we don't. I'm sorry. I'm going into more places than I said I would, but um, that there is a feeling also like that kind of sets the tone for the year, and the also feelings of security, feelings of what makes us feel secure, and our resources are met and our needs are taken care of, and it
Yeah,
seems to
the
be a giant
nodes go
theme.
into, sorry, I
No, it's okay. No,
bit off the end of your sentence. The nodes do that on the 18th. That's all I wanted to say.
okay. Right. So we've got that in the mix too, because it does seem to be that when you brought up the theme of the full moon, what makes us feel secure, so many things and priorities shifting over the last 2 years, and the things that we thought were secure maybe aren't as secure. And that could be even within our own family, who we trust, who we don't trust, who we've
It could
aligned with.
be within our bodies. It could, I mean, everything's changing, and it's changing in ways. Oh,
Sorry.
are you okay? Everything's changing, and then she fell over.
I sneezed.
Oh, you sneezed. Well, nothing we can do. A sneeze is good. It's very in the moment. Um, I think the nodes are not planets, although they will interact with, or planets will interact with them. The nodes are portals. And the
Right.
south node allows things in, and the north node encourages us to develop.
Okay.
So the south node in Scorpio is like, woo, Scorpio is always the mystery, and it's things you didn't expect and weren't planning for. So but it's not necessarily evil. It's simply saying when the south node progresses or moves into Scorpio, and the north node into Taurus on the 18th, I think that people are going to really start cultivating a habit of, I don't care what they're saying. This is what I'm experiencing. Don't tell me it's not a problem if I'm experiencing it as a problem.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So, so the next few days should also be slightly action-packed as well. Chaotic.
Yeah, I would think. I mean,
Defining needs, defining what makes us feel secure, and figuring out how to make ourselves where we want to place our priorities, kind of.
and the internet has destroyed so many words, but Scorpio is about authentic feeling, right? And to have authentic feeling, we have to be still every once in a while.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's for what I'm taking away is that's the best course of action for the next month or so, is to be still and to go inward and just, like you said, breathe.
Yeah, if you can,
Yeah.
if you can, to do that, to make it a habit at least a few times a day, to just stop and listen. But some people are frontliners and they don't really have the luxury of that. So I mean, I don't want it to be precious. I don't want to give people the
No,
message that we have to be precious. Yeah.
it could be 10 minutes when you're on your break and you go out into the sun and you just let the feeling of the sun sink into your skin, and you just like enjoy that feeling.
Before your nose turns into an icicle. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so can we talk about Jupiter, my favorite planet?
It would be. It should be. Mm-hmm.
Um, Jupiter, I listened to our interview back in August, and we were talking about the ingress that Jupiter made, meaning its very first entry into Pisces last year in May. I think it was May.
May 13th.
And but then it was just in briefly, and then it came out, and you were giving us a little introduction of what this transit that's happening now it would be some of the themes that it would be about. And one of the things that was appearing at that time was what were the mass graves of the indigenous children being found. And you didn't, it wasn't the finding of the bodies, it wasn't the discovery of the bodies that was the Jupiter, it was the feeling of
Grief.
compassion, the necessary feelings
And the
that needed,
grief.
yeah, that needed to be felt, and the necessity and the development of compassion that needs to be that needs to swell up when things like this happen and when we find out these things. So I thought that was really interesting, and that was part of one of the themes that you were talking about Jupiter in Pisces. And now that it's here, another theme you mentioned was um, like was allowing yourself to dream or allowing yourself to feel, not necessarily think your way through it.
Right. Jupiter will catch up to Neptune in April. And so Jupiter and Neptune are in cohort, they're cohorting, or what are you, cavorting. And they both, Jupiter's the old ruler of Pisces and Neptune is the more modern ruler of Pisces. So it's a lot of Pisces. So
Do
it
they
could be a
get
lot
along?
of, huh?
Do they get along, those two, Neptune and Jupiter? Are they friends, or are
They
they
get
kind of?
along when they get along, but if Jupiter's also the ruler of Sag, and if there's a square between Sag and Neptune, it can go both ways. I don't think Jupiter and Neptune get along when Jupiter it gets fanatical or judgmental, right? If it's dharma, it's great. If it's dogma, it's not, right?
Okay, fair enough. Hard to get along with that. Anybody to get along with that.
Yeah, dogmatic people only get along with the people who have the same dogma as them. And so that's where you get all this polarization and isolation and mistrust and paranoia. On the other hand, if you just trust everybody, that everybody's doing the best they can and it's good, and that's where you get conned. And if you answer those emails that you get in your spam, you're doomed, right? So and they all appeal to your well, if they're not appealing to your sexual perversion, they're appealing to your kindness and your goodness and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not good to go in either direction.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So like a balance of those two, discrimination perhaps, or discernment, but also not polarizing.
Right. So the best use of all that Pisces would be to really take your spiritual life seriously, which may also be your artistic life, like to really take the existence and the presence of your soul to heart, that it's real. What does it mean if there's this part of you that feels what everyone feels? What does that mean? What does it mean? How do we manage to live with the idea that even one person's child was taken away from them and treated like trash and killed and buried in an unmarked grave? How do forget that it was hundreds, or thousands, what if it was just one, right? It's very hard to hold it because you want to blame somebody, right? And depending on which side of that, line you fall on, it's agony, it's an agonizing thing. And that's only one thing. Right? But that's a huge thing, and it represents everything, I think. So we live in a strange time when we're not allowed, we have to be very careful about cultural appropriation, which is good, right? We can't always just say, oh, yeah, I remember when I lost my whatever. On the other hand, we're human, and we're all human, and we have to acknowledge how it hurts us. And to my mind, I have to then if I'm thinking about Jupiter in Pisces, I have to ask myself, what does this mean for me as a spiritual person, as a person with a soul, as a person who feels what I feel? Like, what am I feeling? You know, what can I do with that? And maybe I can't do anything with it except feel it, and that's fine too.
Yeah.
It's probably the best actually right now.
Yeah. I mean, because as you mentioned before, I think this ties into what you're saying with the Chiron, the wounded healer, the wound being in Aries, which is being, you know, for, I don't know, probably a year and a half at least. Is that how the individual trauma that we've all had, in a way, if we really truly understand our own individual trauma, but really understand it, understand the mechanics, understand how it operates on an unconscious level, and not act out of it, and then we see somebody else suffering, that's how the door of compassion gets opened in a way. Like, if I don't look at my trauma, not to be like, oh me, oh poor me, oh poor me, it's just like, oh, I understand how this affects me, how it affects others,
Yeah.
how this came about. It actually does bring the compassion necessary to say, when somebody says this isn't right, this hurts, then you have the compassion's already there for that person.
Right. And so that's the wonderful side of Jupiter and Pisces. It's not doing anything in January that's particularly strong. It's just wandering through the first degrees of Pisces. But once it catches up to Neptune, it's busy. And the Aries, you know, Jupiter's going to go into Aries on May 10th, right? And it's going to stay there till the end of October. And that's going to be a whole nother activation of Pisces from things that are going on in that part of the year. So if we can find, you know, it's like, yes, it's grounding, but it's not just grounding. I mean, that grounding is always good, but Jupiter is asking us to really look at this sense that we are not separate from each other. What is that? Like, how do we, you know, of course, everyone has to get their own dinner. You know what I mean? Everyone has to feed their kids and all that stuff. But what does it mean, this connection that we have, not just to other humans, but to all sentient beings? It's Pisces is the whole, it's whole hog. It's the whole hog.
Wait, what was that joke you told us about Pisces?
Oh,
About
Pisces?
I'll have one with everything. Well, because Jupiter's in
Oh, make me
Pisces.
one with everything. What did
Yeah.
I don't know, what did the gurus say, or what did the mystics say to the hot dog vendor? Make me one with everything.
Yeah. Right, because that's what Pisces wants to do. It wants to see the oneness that we are.
And sometimes, just like in that joke, it gives you indigestion.
Yeah, so sometimes everything is too much.
Well, if you're, you know, if you get deluded into thinking you figured it out, you're the one who's the one, then, you know, woohoo. So we need to be humble. And the other thing, another keyword for Pisces, which is really useful, is devotion. I think that humans have an incredible inborn need to be devoted, to devote ourselves. And I think it, you know, it comes with what oxytocin or whatever hormones get released when we nurse, but when we nurse our babies, but it's inborn in all humans as well as the ones who don't nurse. And it's misguided a lot. If you devote yourself to, you know, like some crazy guru or something, or if you know, if you believe my country, right or wrong, those kinds of things. But to actually, if you're thinking of how you can follow the journey of Jupiter and Pisces, it might be, what does devotion mean to you? What are you devoted to? How do you devote yourself?
Yeah.
You know, what it's not so much what matters. Matter is more substantial. It's more, you know, in your soul. What do you hear? Devotion. What are you devoting yourself to?
Yeah. And that to me brings forward, for me personally, a heart feeling, or in yoga we call it a bhav, like a,
Yes, it's
it's
blissy.
such a, it's there's literally an oxytocin feeling with that, right?
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
when it's an ideology, it feels like it comes from here.
It can't be an ideology and
Yeah.
be about devotion.
Yes.
That's an oxymoron.
We've got oxytocin and oxymorons.
Oxytocin, oxymoron. There's a period, so Jupiter will sextile Uranus on February 17th.
February 17th.
Yeah, and that'll be an interesting time. I don't know if the listeners to this know that on my website I have insights, and I put all the aspects of the day on the day that they're happening. I mean, some of them affect us longer than just one day, but anyway,
Is this like a monthly
it's
reading?
my
So you
monthly,
can,
yes, right. So
okay,
it's
so you
just
can
my
go there.
little poetic spin on each aspect. But yeah, I recently just posted, it's not up yet, but when on the first day of Aquarius, it will be. But
Which
I
is,
thought that's a lovely aspect, Jupiter sextile Uranus, because that's very much about possibilities that Jupiter can bring us.
possibilities.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm gonna write that down.
Possibilities for devotion.
Okay, I like that. And then you said the first day of Aquarius, which is February 18th. Is that right?
It's February 19th.
February 19th. Okay,
No, it's January 19th
that's what I meant. Sorry.
at 9:39 p.m.
Okay.
So right now, if you go on my website, you'll find Capricorn, because that's where we are.
Okay, good. Yeah. So usually when I listen to astrology videos, I do listen to them once or twice to make sure I get the dates and get all the.
Right.
I find it difficult to kind of nail all at once, but um, that is definitely something you can do to follow up the video, is to go to your website and to check out all the things that you've written down. And
If you want, I mean, it's there. I do it with great, I don't know who's listening, but I certainly keep producing it.
I think a lot of people are. So, okay, well, that was chock full. I felt a
Mhm.
little bit, I felt a little bit of the Mercury Uranus energy there when we were talking, because there's just
So much, yeah.
um, so much. But I really appreciate you taking the time to
Yeah,
chat.
I was talking to some witches friends of mine, and they were talking about wanting to burn things in a fire or something like that. And I said, no, it's much more like a whirlwind. It's much more. And then I thought of this saying, which I think is from the Bible, that you sow the wind, but you reap the whirlwind. I'm not sure
Oh,
exactly but it feels to me like we're reaping the whirlwind. We have sown the wind. But now we're reaping the whirlwind. And this particular Mercury retrograde is really somehow showing us the whirlwind, I think. We'll see.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
We will see. And then in our next interview that we have, we'll come back and see how that all went down. I think we said at the beginning to hold on to our hats. I think that was a good instruction.
Yeah. And, some people are obviously going through it more directly than others.
Yeah.
There's no doubt
Yes.
about it. But as the song says, everybody's going to get wet. Don't think it won't happen just because it hasn't happened yet.
What song is this?
Oh, it's a Jackson Browne song. I love it.
You always have the best sayings from songs.
Oh, I have songs in I'm Mercury and Gemini. What can I say?
My favorite was that. What did you say today? You can't make a pig sing.
Oh, never try and teach a pig to sing. It only annoys the pig. That was in a different context, but yeah.
Yeah, that was what. Yeah,
That's it.
I'm gonna keep a book of Judaisms.
That's thanks to my sister, my oldest sister. Gave me that.
Okay, well, thanks, Julie. We'll see you next month.
Thank you, Sarah. It's lovely to be with you in this way.
Always. Bye.
Bye.